I don't think you want the kinds of investors who invest in GameStop and AMC buying your stock, because they might push your stock up 30% quickly, but they can also push your stock down 30% for no good reason at all.
Welcome to our latest video where finance expert Aswath Damodaran dives into the revolutionary impact of AI on investing. In this session recorded in Brazil, Damodaran discusses how the convergence of big data and immense computing power is reshaping the financial landscape. He highlights the advantages held by tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, and explores the implications of recent dividend announcements by Meta and Google. Stay tuned to understand how AI is driving change and what it means for investors in the tech industry.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in Brazil and I did a session on AI and whether AI is a revolutionary change, how it's rippling through investing. And one of the things I talked about is we often focus on the big winners in AI by looking at AI products, right? NVIDIA, obvious, AI chips, and Adobe AI products. But I think AI brings with it demand for other stuff. Ultimately, AI, ChatGPT might have brought it to our public consciousness, but it's a convergence of two big forces that have been exploding over the last 15 years. One is the collection of data, not just numerical and financial data, but data about your behavior and my behavior that the big tech companies have accumulated over time, which has to be stored somewhere. And the other is incredibly, almost insane computing power brought to play. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about big data plus computing power on steroids. And there will be the beneficiaries of those companies that make money on those two things, NVIDIA and the computing power side. And the big data, for better or worse, is in the hands of it's not just the cloud that you store it in, but the companies that have exclusivity to that data. So I've always believed that in the AI space, Google and Amazon are going to start with an advantage because no two companies have as much exclusive data as those two companies have. And since AI requires that data for its power, you're going to start with an advantage. You saw that not just in extended use of the cloud and the service and the revenues that come from it, but you're still going to start to see it in more explicit benefits that emerge from AI products that come out of these companies that use that data. So, to me, it's not a surprise, because if AI is playing out as big as it is, you should see those effects show up at those companies. Microsoft has it from both the cloud business as well as being this partnership with OpenAI that's become one of the great investments they could have ever made.
Yeah.
But I think that I'll be quite honest, the big story for me over the last few weeks is not the earnings season, but the fact that two companies in the mix that you talked about announced that they were going to start paying dividends, right? Both Meta and Google. And that to me is revealing, because it tells me what they think about where they are in the life cycle. As you know, I have this fixation about the corporate life cycle. And announcing that you're going to pay dividends is like, announcing you're going to wear khakis, which basically means, hey, I'm not the, ripped jeans kind of, I'm growing up. I've got to get a job. So in a sense, there is this admission, at least internally, that this is, the glory days of just easy. So the cloud business might give them a boom right now, but this is, they're recognizing they're very different companies than what they thought they were. It's amazing, especially with Facebook and those initial periods of metaverse, you could still see the arrogance of, we're a growth company, we can go into the metaverse, we can do all kinds of stuff. And I've got to give Mark Zuckerberg credit. He's in a sense grown up quickly, partly because he got punished by the market so intensely. But I think that is, to me, a big story, because it tells me that these companies are laying the foundation. Because when you pay dividends, what you do is you change your investor base. You're calling in people into your investor base who traditionally might have stayed away from you, more value-oriented investors. And they might bring a lower price, but they also bring in more stability. These are not the people who are saying, what have you done for me lately? When are you going to deliver 20% growth? And that's why it's a big story, because I think they're preparing an investor base for a more sobering decade going forward. In spite of all the bubbling of AI right now, looking forward, I think they see more competition, less growth, and I think that paying of dividends signals that that's what they're seeing. They're the odd man left out. I mean, I think, it's a question of, I think, what the price does and how the market reacts to it. And I mean, I think they might be, it might make sense for them to, I mean, remember, these dividends are not big dividends. They're almost like, first rounds in a much longer fight. So I think if Amazon wants to get a more mature, and I'm going to use the word with quotes around it, investor base, this might not be a bad idea, because I don't think you want the kinds of investors who invest in GameStop and AMC buying your stock, because they might push your stock up 30% quickly, but they will also push your stock down 30% for no good reason at all. So I think that there is a significant portion of our investor base which has gotten used to this, playing investing as a game. They're playing the same way they do casino tables. And if I'm a company, I want those investors away from my company, not in my company.
So Aswath, it's interesting what you said about, you sort of couched the announcement to issue a dividend not as a negative thing, but almost...
In fact, when you see companies initiate dividends, it's often, and you look at earnings growth before and after, earnings growth peaks about 2 quarters before dividends get initiated. And after that, what you see is earnings growth get much lower. So I think, in a sense, dividend initiation is really a signal of, hey guys, we got used to 20% growth in our earnings. We're a different company now. And we want you to recognize that going in. It's a sign of maturity to recognize that going for a higher price now and pushing up expectations that you cannot deliver is actually a bad thing. And I think these companies have come to that recognition, and I think that dividend payment might be the start of that process of kind of reorienting people's thinking about what the future will hold. It's been one of my worries with AI. I think this winner-take-all phenomena we've been seeing build up over the last 2-3 decades, which I think you pointed to with when you first looked at the tech companies. AI, I think, is going to make it even more winner-take-all. And I'm sure you've in the Clayton Christensen argument about disruption 30 years ago, that it always comes from outsiders, and that's the way it worked out with .com. And with AI, I don't think that's going to apply. And here's why. You need 2 big things for AI. You need processing power in immense amounts and control of data. So it's going to be very difficult for a newcomer to even venture into this space, because you're going to get squashed. This is one of those things where the biggest tech companies might actually start off at such an incredible advantage over everybody else that, it's going to be tough to catch up with them. So the Mag 7 might have an extended run, or the Fang Am, if you prefer to call it, might have an extended run, because AI actually makes the strong even stronger. Just like COVID made the strong even stronger, this seems to be another phase of the strong will gain strength. There might be a newcomer who creeps in. But the interesting thing about the Mag 7 is when one of the companies underperforms, Apple, for instance, somebody else steps in and fills the gap. So it's almost like, you hold all 7 or all 10 or whatever you make the number, that the collective group finds a way to outperform the market, because if there's a loser there, the winner often is another company in the same group. It's not some outsider that's coming in. So I worry that 20 years from now, you're going to look at the S&P 500 and you're going to find or any index, you're going to find even more concentration at the top than you did, which creates social and economic questions that will get bigger over time. So if you think antitrust is, and Lena Khan might think they're big, that question is only going to get bigger 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And it might become even more difficult to confront as these companies get bigger.